Start our work session for today, October. There we go. Welcome everyone to our City Council work session for Tuesday, October 5th, 2021. We have three topics to talk about if we can in the hour. Maybe we can carry it late or continue after the City Council meeting we have after this. Kristen, which of the three did you want to talk about first?
If we could start with the Alfresco program, we have several people on the call. I'm here to share their thoughts on the program. So if we could start with that, that would be wonderful.
Awesome. Thank you, Kristen. So we had the city initiated special event permit during the height of the pandemic that Joe approved and created, called Alfresco, in which we expanded opportunities to have spaces for restaurants, and I think to a person on City Council and staff said, once we were done, we would revisit the program, see if it's something we wanted to do again, do on an annual basis or something, but we wanted to hear from folks, and we've heard in writing from folks before today that weren't able to join us today. We have a number of people that want to talk, and we're going to give them a chance in just a second. And your time is your own, so you can talk about what you did or didn't like about what we did before, or forget all about that and talk about what you want or don't want in the future, or combination of both, or whatever. So I have a list of folks, and let's start with Kristen Keats, if Kristen's with us.
Hi.
There you are. Hi, Kristen.
Hi. Wow, I didn't know you were going to call on me. I wasn't prepared, but yes, I just wanted to support the Alfresco program. I frequent those businesses a lot. And I was actually just at Mason last weekend, and they were talking about how important the program is to them. And I have an office right here in Old Town, so I'm constantly driving that route. So it's not an inconvenience to me and my house is on the other side of it. And so it's not an inconvenience to me to shut down the street. And I actually think it's been really great for the businesses.
So Kristen, beyond that, so you're supportive of doing something again, the same or different, or are you just supportive of the general concept?
I'm supportive of it being the same. I guess maybe I don't have as good imagination as what something different would look like, but the same would be fine with me.
Okay. Thanks, Kristen. Brian Fairbanks, are you connected? So Brian hasn't been able to connect yet. So if he comes back later, we will.
Hey, Mayor.
Yeah.
Sorry. Kristen, can somebody email Doug the Zoom link? He doesn't seem to have one to get into the meeting.
Oh, that'd be great. And the next on my list is Rebecca. Did Rebecca connect? I did not see Rebecca's name on there. Next, Charlie Harvick. Hey, Charlie.
Hey, Keith. Yes, I guess I would have to say that I'm not particularly in favor of the Alfresco program. I guess to start with, I don't really understand quite what it is. All it really seems to be is closing Railroad Street. I'm not sure, for the benefit of the three businesses that are there. So I'd like better definition about what it really is. If that's all it is, I'm not in favor of it. I would say it's personally affected me negatively because I have state highway signs, directional signs, that I pay about $90 a month for. And I have customers come down and they get to Railroad Streets and there's nowhere to go. It doesn't tell them where they're going. The street's just closed. So they have to figure it out. So I would say that I've had a fairly consistent stream of complaints from my customers about, the street being closed, and they ask me, what's going on and so forth. And I explain that, it's because of the COVID, and we're doing a special thing there, and some people have gone up to patronize the businesses there, and they're not really open at the same time I am. So they'll go up there and there's no activity there. The street's just closed.
So if it didn't involve, if something was done that didn't involve closing the road, so one program that the city is or project the city is starting to work on, plan for, is redoing the gravel parking lot into a new kind of space, a flex space. But in theory, and looking at how the alleys are used, and that's again more of a conversation. But if there was something that people put together that didn't involve closing roads,
I would say I'd be in favor of it. I mean, closing the roads to me is a big deal. I mean, in the city of Portland, you see where they'll use the parking strip in front of the businesses to expand. And you and I both worked on the urban renewal project, and those sidewalks on Railroad are specifically designed to accommodate outdoor seating. And there is a lot of outdoor seating on the sidewalk right now. I looked just the other day and there's 20 tables on the sidewalk for those businesses. So I would contend that maybe there's already al fresco program going on. I'm not sure that I see the necessity of closing the street. So that would be my biggest objection to it. Otherwise, I'd be very open to anything that promotes business for everybody in Old Town. Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks, Charlie. Alan and Robert Bauer.
Hey guys,
Hey.
I'm muted. Hey, there we go. I want to thank you for having me and hearing me and my father's thoughts on this. I'm kind of left shaking my head in some ways about this. I don't think that it's uncommon knowledge, as having spoken to the other eateries in town, that we felt that this was a negative impact on our established patio businesses and so forth. I understand when my secretary Jen talked to you, Keith, the other day, that you mentioned that there were a number of complaints that had happened and so on and so forth in regards to them following the rules that were outlined in Joe's previous declaration. I kind of feel like in some ways that this is somewhat disingenuous and a dog and pony show, to be honest, that to get the public feedback in the situation when I feel like resources have already been dedicated. It's been moved out of the SEPA program. The SEPA program is specifically designed for the public, for the use of entities in public spaces for temporary use. It's been moved out into something that is obviously being planned to be either semi-permanent or something else. I agree with everything Charlie said about the inconveniences to the streets, the 18 or 20 parking spots, one of the 2 ADA parking spots in Old Town Sherwood. And honestly, who's going to compete against a 10,000 square foot outdoor music and food venue on the sunny side of the street? It devalues the establishments that have investments into their own space. When they expanded the sidewalks, we noticed the impact into our patio space with just the 21 tables out there between the 2 establishments. During COVID, when we're operating at a restricted, our capacities are 135 inside and 145 outside. We could operate at 40 people. Their capacities are in the 20s and 30s, And they can move outside and operate at 40 people. So they're operating at greater than their inside capacities. We're operating at less capacity. I'm totally fine with all that. I supported all of the alfresco from the beginning. These were, people I consider my friends. And now I feel like this is putting me at odds with my fellow Old Town business owners, that I have to complain or complain about their success because it directly affects something that I have 30 years of records. I've never had a down season in my patio in 30 years. And it's not because of COVID at that point in time. It's because I have a direct competition that I can't compete against. It's a public space being used for private profits. It's not in their lease. They don't pay taxes on the space. They don't pay, I could go on and on and on why I think that it affects me, but I don't want to be the new squeaky wheel, the new clause, the new point your finger at this. I feel like it's a really, really difficult thing. I order food for my fellow Old Town businesses because they can't get stuff through their current distributors. When the tents went down, I sent labor over to pick them up. When these guys need a refrigerated van for their events, I provide a refrigerated van for their events upon their request. And now I feel like I'm being made to be the bad guy or the asshole because I want to protect my 35 employees, my 26.5 full-time employees and their livelihoods. I feel I have a dedication to my corporation of 35 years that pays about $1.34 million in taxes annually into the state budget. I feel I do a lot for the state and for the city. And I feel like I'm being put in a position that I really don't want to be in. And I have to be honest about this because I care for my people. I want them to be successful, but you can't tell me that if we go and look at my numbers and we go look at their numbers, that my decrease is their increase, that Rachel was shut for 5 months, couldn't operate. When I talk to Shannon, she says it impedes on her patio business because there's a bright, shiny object that's being advertised for by the city. Sure, my name's on the advertisement, but I'm not out there in the big fancy al fresco. It's not one and the same. And, I'm probably past my 3 minutes.
Can I ask a question, Mayor?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Kim.
Or Alan? Alan, is there any sort of downtown program that you could think that could work for all businesses? Because when I'm looking into the future, it can no longer be just those 3 businesses to do something downtown. It has to be something that benefits all of our businesses. So is there anything that, and you don't have to answer this now, but is there anything, that we could do down there that would benefit?
Well, how about how about people stay in their own lanes? Like you said, if you want to look at if they want to give up the parking spots in front of their businesses to expand for another few tables, I'm not going to argue with that. That's their space, but it does affect the rest of Old Town parking. We've had parking studies done. We know we have 174 parking spots in downtown. That's 10% of the parking in downtown. When it moves off of there, it moves traffic. When traffic can't go through there, traffic goes down my street. It makes it less pedestrian friendly for my people. My people sitting on the sidewalk next to the street have more traffic. Cars running down there making noise. It's why I know what I paid for the last 35 years. I don't understand why we can't just stay in our own lanes and work in the areas that people have been. I realized it was neat. We've talked about, I've heard the festival lot being brought up as an opportunity to do things outside of that, but yeah, again, there are multiple, it rolls. If there's 16 less parking spots, 18 less parking spots, it does affect the businesses on the other side of town. It does affect the flow of traffic. It does affect the other aspects of it. And my other real big questions are, why was it moved out of the SEPA situation? I feel like it's kind of a repeat of the gift that was given into them after the COVID restrictions were lifted. They had 30 days of being able to do stuff down there. They didn't follow the rules, to my understanding. The city covered the insurance, the city covered this thing. I mean, if I was to rent that space based upon my previous spacing with the SEPA program, it would have been $9,000 roughly for the 30 days. For 10,000 square feet. That seems pretty average for if you were going to rent some commercial space at that point in time. I have to carry an insurance rider. For 5 days, it cost me about $1,200 to carry $2 million of insurance to indemnify the city when I do St. Patrick's Day. I just don't understand why, even we've all been hurt by COVID. I made myself the sacrificial lamb and let people know that I felt that it was hurting my business. And yet the gift was continue to give them after the fact. When I talked to Lawson about it, he's like, we'd be happy to pay for it. And he told me, yes, I want to make this permanent. Well, and I told him, that it hurts my business. And I feel like we haven't been as tight of friends since then. And it's terrible. It eats me up inside. And, I don't know, I don't want to beat a dead horse here. It's pretty obvious where I stand on this situation. I'm happy to speak with anybody regarding this. And I don't push me in a corner, please. I mean, you're privatizing profits on a public space. This is inconceivable in my mind. I mean, if I knew there was a big demand from an outreach to public that says, hey, this has to absolutely happen. It's the best thing that ever happened to Sherwood, but it doesn't come that way. And I've got multiple people that I feel weren't even contacted in regards to responding to this particular thing, including the American Legion and other people that I have spoken to about it. Yep. And they don't feel like they want to get in here and fight City Hall. Yep. You never win fighting.
All right, Alan. Thanks, Alan. Yeah, definitely appreciate your comments. Lawson, Granger?
Apparently not.
My camera's kind of messed up, so forgive me.
It's all right.
Sorry, I have to follow that. I don't really know where to go from there because I had a whole thing planned. I'm just going to read it. I don't call anyone out by name in my thing, so I'm just going to leave it at that. But I do appreciate the opportunity to speak. Please know that I'm here on behalf of myself and my husband and my business, Mason, and I speak for no one else. I understand we're here to talk about the future of al fresco and dining in Sherwood and whether we should do it again next year, but let's be clear. Al fresco pretty much continues to go on as of today. The only thing that changed on July 29th is that Railroad Street reopened in Smockville, 503 uncorked. J. Rallis and Mason lost their covered outdoor dining areas, i.e. their tents. Like most people, I still don't understand why that was taken away. I was told it's because it's Joe Gall's decision, even though it was no longer the city manager. I was told that the street dining was for use during COVID, and now COVID is over. That was told to me on July 29th. Now it's October and COVID is far from over. The Delta variant alone has changed the landscape of in-person dining. For we now know that this is endemic and the future of the variants on the horizon, some of which may be resistant to the vaccine. There is so much we still don't know. I get dozens of calls per week from customers who will not dine inside. They are scared and cautious. Given the past 18 months, this has been manageable during the warmer months, but as we move into the fall and winter and even early spring, this will pencil out into thousands of dollars per month of lost business for Mason. Again, everyone's seen loss, so I do not stand alone in that. But they will simply go elsewhere. In their minds, they can safely dine outside somewhere else. Given all of this, I'm appealing to you, the city, to take action. It is my understanding that Dax, and this is important. It is my understanding that TVF&R is moving towards changing the rules to allow businesses to keep their tents up year round. So people that have their tents will be able to keep them year round, whereas in the past they will not. So that's a change for them, and that's great. I'm happy for them, but I'm asking that the city take into consideration that some of us do not have the opportunity to have tents up year round in our backyards. And so I'm asking the city to do something. Given all of this, what do I propose? So I'm not even getting into this part. The first choice would have been to ask to reinstate the street closure and allow us to put our tents back up. There has been a huge outpouring, and I know all of us will say this. We've had lots of people say no, lots of people say yes, but a lot of people loved that experience. My proposal is not to put it back up the way it was, but to make it something bigger and more creative, allowing more for the community with the arts and music, not just about our personal businesses. There are cities like Beaverton, Portland, Walla Walla, Boise. They're already doing versions of this, and it's very successful. It's good for the city of Sherwood. It's good for the businesses, whether you realize that immediately or not. It brings more people into Sherwood. We saw more people last summer than we've ever seen who are new to the area coming down to Sherwood. That is very good for Sherwood. Another alternative would be to make Railroad Street a one-way, closing it on our side of the street. This would allow us to build curblets or covered dining areas with design approval from the city, of course, without completely blocking the street. Of course, this would be less of a community area, but would at least allow us to have outdoor dining during this new normal, as so many other businesses around us do. In both scenarios, of course, I would expect to pay rent, which is revenue for the city. I never asked for free handout during the pandemic. I appreciate what the city did, but I will always stand up and pay for it if that's the right thing to do. Finally, I just can't stress enough how much people love the street dining. It truly could be something even greater for Sherwood. We just need to have a bit.
We lost you at the end there, Lawson. So we
With
lost
that,
you when
I
we lost
mean,
you when you said
there was a lot.
Lawson, the last bit, could you repeat from where, if you have a vision? Your internet's failing you.
Yeah, he's frozen, but I think his
Yeah.
point was we just need to have a vision down there. Yeah.
Very good. And I don't see Brian or Rebecca. Did they join? Okay. Comments, questions of counselors for each other, for staff, for folks that talked?
Not a comment, but maybe a request for Julia or Kristen. Could we verify the rule changes with TVF&R around tents? I'd like to understand more about what that means and what those changes are.
Sure.
That'd be great.
And just a reminder, and I think you may have mentioned this at the beginning, but you have received written comments as well. And so I'm sure that you have all read those and are contemplating this. I just wanted to make sure that if people are watching at home, that you acknowledge that you received those written emails as well.
Yep.
And could we also find out somehow for cities that allow, like Lawson was talking about, the curblets where we take the parking area, but the street is still open or one side is one way, how the other cities charge those businesses for that space, if that were the case, if there is a charge and what that looks like.
Sure,
I'm sorry.
absolutely.
I'm sorry I lost my internet. I just want to thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
No, I just want to thank you. I rambled that off. I got a little hyped there, but I do want to be a part of the conversation. This is a tougher forum to have this kind of thing because everyone gets their 3 minutes. But I definitely want to answer any questions and thoughts about what I said or anything you have. And I missed the last basically 2 minutes of what happened. So
Tim asked staff to come back to ask about TVF&R new rules. Kim asked staff to check with other cities about what other cities do with parking in front of businesses.
And how they charge for it.
Right. From my perspective, it's definitely, okay, we did what we did.
I mean, I
during-
think that's one of the things in my speech that biggest point I made was
so the
I got one more question. Lawson, can you clarify for me what you're saying regarding the tent restrictions, that you'd want tent restrictions so that I couldn't have a tent in my back patio because you feel like it takes away business from you on my private property? If it's up all year long versus being taken down?
Well, it used to not be allowed up all year long. It was 180 days. And now it's being changed because of COVID. So I'm asking the city to consider something like that for businesses that don't have that opportunity. Yes.
That they make me take mine down even though TVF.
No, I'm not asking them to make you take yours
I'm
down. I'm saying, why would I do that? I do not.
I'm just
I
trying to
want your
figure out the
business.
I'm trying to figure out the
Right. Why
clarification
do I
on the
care?
180 days. I'm just trying to figure out the
No,
clarification.
that's the way it
on
used to
180
be.
days.
But TVFNR is
Okay.
okay.
Well, they also used to have tent restrictions on whether or not a tent was fire retardant, whether or not it had
Yeah, and they're making
snow
concessions because of
load and
COVID.
rain loads too.
Yes, I agree.
So,
They're making concessions because of COVID. I'm asking the city to do the same thing.
okay, I just wanted clarification on that. Sounds good.
We'll be happy to talk to TVFNR and get some clarification, and we'll talk about the tent issue later.
Thank you, Kristen.
Okay.
Anyway, back to what I was talking about. So, yeah, I just would love to have some idea. And like I've always said, I would pay, and I would be happy to pay. You know, it is public way. You know, it's a public street. If we rent back part of that, I'm happy to do that. I'm just saying we don't have that opportunity, and going into this ever-changing situation, it would be lovely to be able to work out something that doesn't impede on all the businesses, doesn't make everyone unhappy. But on top of that, the whole idea of the street thing, I would even rather it close all the way down and up Washington. I mean, just make it something cool. That's a longer conversation. I get that. But if it's even possible. But in the short term, we're entering into the season where I have people that will not dine here, and they're going to go to places that have covered outdoor areas, which is great for those businesses. And I do not want those people to have to take their tents down, but I would love to have that same opportunity. If there's something we can do to work that out, that's what I'm pushing for. That's my more immediate concern than anything else.
Okay.
That's it.
Thanks, Lawson.
All right. Thank you.
Mayor, it looks like Deb, she wasn't on my list, but someone may have forwarded her the invite as a Old Town business owner from 503, I believe.
Great. Deb, you want to, so we're asking folks and they can address the question however they want, talk about what they did or didn't like about what happened during the shutdown in 2020 and early 2021. And or talk about what they'd love to see next year, or a bit of both, or whatever. So take it away.
Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to speak. I didn't really plan on it, so I appreciate the time. I do agree a lot with what Lawson has said. I believe that the alfresco dining did create a destination for downtown Sherwood. Yes, it was set up in front of our three businesses, but there were many nights where I had people walk up and say, Clancy's has a 45-minute wait. Do you have any room? So I feel like it was a draw for all. We're not asking to have a big, massive tent outside all year round. Like Lawson said, we're just asking for the ability to have something outside, because we do have very small inside spaces and COVID isn't over. And so a lot of people don't want to sit inside. And with just having tables with umbrellas, that's pretty much worthless right now, even with today's weather. If it wasn't for alfresco dining, I can't speak for the other businesses, but for 503, I'm not sure that we would still be here. So we're very, very appreciative of that opportunity. But we are also nervous going into the winter and what that will look like. And so we just want an opportunity to have something that's available to the businesses. And I would love to see something come together for a long term that actually brings all of the downtown businesses back together as well. So.
Thanks, Deb. Other questions from council for folks that spoke or for staff or amongst yourselves?
There.
Keith, this is Charlie Harvick again.
Yeah, Charlie?
Can I ask or make one more comment here, please?
Sure.
I guess listening to both the gentleman from Mason and Deb from 503, I'm wondering, I know there is some space behind the building. They're both in there on the alley side. I'm wondering why they don't have something back there. And can the alley itself not be used? I mean, the alley being closed wouldn't be a big deal.
503 doesn't have any access to the alleyway.
Well, don't you have a hallway there?
No,
Or
it's
is that
just it's just for restrooms. It's just a shared hallway with
There's no
restrooms.
direct access to the alley.
no access to that? Well, maybe you could create some. I mean, anyway, that was just a thought.
Thanks, Charlie. So any other comments or questions? So from the community standpoint, it's important to know that we have the SEPA program that the prior city manager used kind of on the emergency basis for what we did in 2020 and early 2021. The city manager we want to see what we may or may not do next year, because there's interest for and against, which we've heard both tonight and in email written testimony, and what it could potentially look like. But then as part of SEPA's special event permit applications, what they're normally done is they're not initiated by the city, or they're initiated by private businesses or organizations to do an event over 1, 2, or 3 days, or there's also ongoing events, an example being like the farmer's market. So important to know that there's not just city initiated SEPAs, but more commonly they're from businesses and organizations. Any other thoughts or comments before we move on to the next topic?
So since we had all these community members come, I mean, the next step for us, we wanted to hear from them, and then the city council will continue the conversations and bring others into those conversations if needed. I know Lawson is very interested in being part of the conversation, so we'll just keep the communication open. But the next step would be for city council to actually have probably another work session to.
Yeah, and the new city manager starts Thursday, so I expect Keith Campbell, the new city manager, to review the testimony we received, and to get kind of fresh eyes from me, get fresh eyes from him on perspective of what we've done, and then decide when to have another.
Well, I think the council can call a work session without the new, I do want to hear the new city manager's input too, but I would like to get a work session on the books sooner than later to talk about this, because I think there's a lot to consider. We got some more information to gather, and there's really two issues at hand. One is, what's a process for evaluating a program next year, right? In what does that look like? How does it benefit all the businesses downtown and Sherwood overall, and or do we even do it? But that's a process that requires community engagement and to really nail that down. But there's a shorter term issue in my mind that I think deserves conversation around. What do we do this winter as we move into the cold and flu season with COVID and the mutations that we're dealing with out there? So for that reason, I'd like to get a work session on the books sooner than later so we can have that conversation.
Cool. I think we can do that.
But Mayor, as you were talking about the SEPA, could current businesses right now could apply for a SEPA to do something in the front of their businesses, or
They could.
it's kind of a longer term thing though than a weekend or a 2 to 3 day thing? So
Yes.
Can I ask a question? Sorry.
Go ahead, Lawson.
Is there a, so the fact we're doing this over Zoom was ironically a little bit daunting because, we're doing it over Zoom because of the COVID. Is there a world where we're going to have an in-person work session or discussion? Because this is a lot harder to get points across and understand where people are coming from and respond. And I have visuals I wanted to show you, but I don't even know how to do that on Zoom. So is there a world where a work session is going to be in person, or is this what we have going forward?
In the near term, this is what we have. Just because.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because of coronavirus. Yeah.
No, it's because we don't want to wear masks together. We could, but
that's coronavirus. I mean,
no, that's
okay.
That's internal policy on the city hall. It's not. Anyways, so
Hey, Mayor,
yes,
can I ask a question? So when we have our work session, which I really look forward to as well, and I know that staff has provided us at times with some of this information, but I was trying to look online at what, Tualatin and Tigard and Wilsonville, what kinds of programs, what are they doing? And so maybe our staff could reach out to their staff and there'd be more of a direct communication to find out, well, what are they planning? Maybe we can get some good ideas from another jurisdiction. So that's my thought.
Yeah, look at some of the cities who are doing it already. Yeah, for sure. Excellent.
So Kristen will look at the agenda forecast and put it on the work session for one of the next couple meetings.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks everyone for
Thanks,
joining
Alan.
us
Thanks,
and
Lawson.
talking.
Thanks, Deb.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
So it is 6:38. We have garbage and we have chickens. Shall we do garbage now and do chickens after the council meeting, or what's your pleasure?
Yes.
That makes sense to me. We have people here for the garbage conversation, so let's do that first.
All right, so we're back to garbage. Craig.
Evening, Mayor and Council. This is a follow-up from September 7th council meeting. Chris Bill at the time provided some different options. At that meeting, council asked for him to go back and look at he had just received a report on some recycling information. And he's here tonight to present that information to you, what the outcome is.
Let's see here. All righty, can everybody see this?
Yeah.
Fantastic. I can make this really quick. If you recall our meeting, one of the issues that we had was there was 3 rate scenarios. We kind of narrowed it down to 2. The direction that I was given by city council is to look at the impact of recycling that's having this year and possibly next year. And so I worked with Eric at Pride and came up with the updated information. Real quick, rates were last adjusted in January by a minor amount for commercial. Dropbox is up by $5. Cart, residential cart and commercial cart remained unchanged. The adjusted results for this year, for 2020, actually for last year, 20, was still within a range between the 8 and 12%, coming in at 11.2%, which was good considering prior years were a little bit lower than that. The estimated cost for 2021, the projected recycling processing, the value of the material is a lot better this year than it was in the past. Yard debris is going to be increasing the cost. Labor is going to go up just because there's an annual increase with the Teamsters contract. A disposal cost, as City Council is well aware of, has been pushed up and up and up by Metro. And I think everybody who is involved with garbage is anticipating that it's also going to be pushed up again in 2021. The taxes increased by $8.40 on July 1st. And we're expecting probably about another similar increase the upcoming year in 2022, next year. So putting all those projected costs into the rate. Let me back up here. About the recyclable material value, again, the value of the recycled material is increased in 2021. And what that does is it decreases the amount that Pride and the rest of the haulers are paying to have the materials processed and marketed. This year, the increase reduced the cost by 51%, which for the projected revenue for 2021 is going to, we're looking at between around 10.9% projected for 2021. So the increase went by, about $50,000 increased by 2%. So the projected 2021 results, we're looking at just a little bit under 11%. Again, we're still within the 8-12% rate range. And so that eliminated one of the scenarios that we're looking at. So there's two scenarios that the city council can consider for rate adjustment. One is the regular CPI, the percentage of the CPI applied to the rates, which I've summarized here. The other rate scenario is that same adjustment plus the increase in the tipping fee that's increased from year to year. And so those are the two rate scenarios, or the two rate approaches that the city council needs to consider and give a recommendation on how they want to adjust those moving forward. So that's kind of where we're at. I try to be really brief because you guys need to talk about chickens.
We'll talk about chickens in an hour or so, but thanks, Chris. Questions for Chris or Craig from council?
Can you go back, put the slides back up? You went through this so fast. I didn't have time.
Yeah, apologize.
Can you go back?
Did you want to look at alternative 1 and 2?
No, I want to go back to where you showed the projections.
Oh,
there you
okay.
go. So the projected results are based on the current rates or proposed rates?
Yes. No, they're for 2021. They're based on the rates that are already in force.
Okay, and just to be clear, that's for the fiscal year ending.
Calendar year.
Calendar year. Okay.
Calendar year. Yes.
So that's what we'll. So as of January, so 2021 calendar year, 10.94% return on revenues.
Correct. What I'm anticipating is once Pride consolidates all their information, that the report that they'll submit in March for 2021 will be around 11% for the city of Sherwood.
And could you go to the alternatives again?
So the first one is the percentage of the CPI. And for this slide, I'm assuming, a 3% CPI. So it's 0.75% of the adjusted CPI. And the issue is what CPI index does the city want to use? And then the alternative 2 is passing through the rate increase for disposal fee plus that percentage of CPI.
So this is a pass-through plus the increase.
Correct. And the increase of the tipping fee primarily is, from year to year is about $10. So if the CPI was just passed through, chances are we'd probably have to look at a rate adjustment in 2020. In 2022, we'd have to look at a higher rate adjustment for 2023. So this is kind of taking a proactive approach to passing through that additional rate increase from Metro.
And those rate increases are already in place for Metro, right?
Part of it is, yeah. Pride has 2 rate increases. They've got contractual obligations to the company that they pay to haul the waste from Sherwood out to the Dalles. And they also have a contractual obligation with the landfill. And then you also have regular adjustments, payroll and everything like that. So those usually take place on January 1st. And then Metro, whatever they decide, usually comes into in force on July 1st, on the beginning of their fiscal year. So what we've seen this year is there's been 2 rate increases.
So I guess I'm confused as to why wouldn't we pass through that disposal increase? I mean, Pride's going to have to pay it to Metro, correct?
Correct.
But they're
already paying it right now.
But there's also some offsets in terms of more revenue on the recycling side. So it's not all downside in terms of all the changes and how the Pride's impacted by these fees. It's got better in some places and worse in some places.
So Kristen, Craig, and Chris, between the 3 of you, what's staff and the consultant's recommendation?
What I've been recommending is, in other jurisdictions, we've typically adjusted and passed through that tipping fee increase because that's a cost that's outside the control of the haulers. They got to, like we were saying, they got to pay it regardless. Unfortunately, and most council members are well this, Metro's well aware of this, that they're just going to push it through. And so, we haven't seen, I think Sherwood's the only city council that's kind of really given pushback to Metro on these increases. And like I said, I'm anticipating they're going to have another one in July, July 2022. So at some point, if it's just the CPI is applied, we're going to get below that 8% again. And so this is kind of hoping that we would rather have small increases, although again, when you raise the tipping fee between $8 and $12 every year, those small incremental fees or increases kind of go away, and we have big tipping fee increases and they impact the rates.
Mayor, this is Craig. I've been working and I would agree with that's the same approach that we had working on this project. So is to do a pass through of the tipping fees. Pride's going to have some additional expenses next year. I believe I sent that to each one of you guys with union negotiations and some other things too. So I agree with Chris on alternative 2.
Thanks, Craig.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Other questions or comments from counselors? What do you think? What do you need to know?
I think it makes sense to pass it through now rather than a future larger increase all at one time, especially with the other changes that Craig sent to us earlier this week that are going to come up. There's going to be more increases, and it could be quite a bit more than $1.40. So that's just using the 35-gallon cart example. But
Thanks, Kim. Others, thoughts, likes, don't likes, questions?
If I could get on my soapbox for a second, I'm incredibly frustrated with Metro over all this. Metro, and for anyone listening out there, Metro, with no input from the community, the citizens, or the ratepayers, can go out and raise rates, raise tipping fees, introduce new fees, demand that we pass ordinances to manage those fees, and with no accountability to the public. And if you follow it closely with Metro, a lot of this money is going to new investments. It's not just going to cover their current operations. So it's incredibly frustrating that they put us in a situation where we have to raise rates on our consumers to cover our obligations with Pride. And Pride, you guys do a great job. So I have no complaints there. You guys are awesome. And I really appreciate all the hard work you do in our community. So I'm okay with easing into this. on alternative two. It's just, I just wanted to get on the record how frustrated I am with Metro over this. And it's frustrating the other cities aren't pushing harder on Metro on these issues. And we need to continue to fight Metro on these issues and create some public awareness about how they're managing our garbage and our waste and our recycling in the region. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox.
I concur with what Tim just said. I support staff's recommendation of alternative two. I am frustrated with Metro. Yeah, they just can wave a wand and get very ambitious with projects that don't necessarily aren't the right things to do without a lot of debate there for sure with some of their projects. So other thoughts, comments? If anyone want to do something different?
Can we leave Metro?
I'll let you explore that glorious option. It would be nice, but unfortunately, none of us won that $700 million Powerball lottery last night.
Well, if one of us wins, we're going to start a voter initiative.
If there's no objection from council, we'll ask staff to put this on a future city council agenda for alternative two. And we'll have public conversation about it again, but in a public forum. So it'd be good not to put it on the consent, but have it be an action item so we can let the community see the information again. Please.
That sounds good.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Craig. Appreciate your hard work and going back, working with our outstanding hauler in town company, Pride, to understand all the numbers and the improved numbers when it comes to recycling. Hopefully the market for recycled materials continues to be strong or even stronger. But with that, it is 6:55 and we'll adjourn, or we will go to recess this work session, and we'll return after the city council meeting to talk about chickens, unless there is an objection to coming back after the city council meeting. Hearing none, we will come back and talk about chickens and their role in our community, or not, after the city council meeting. So thank you, everyone. We'll have a city council